I'm Michael from trainedparrot.com, and I'm visiting the Wildlife World Zoo and Aquarium, and this is Josh.
Hi guys, I'm the education curator here at Wildlife World Zoo, and we're hanging out with Angel, our sulfur-crested cockatoo. Would you like to say hi? Hi. Very nice, thank you. Let's see, what else would you like to do? He's been our best consistent flyer in terms of performance.
So what about like the birds that are good at doing their routine, and they get thrown from the routine? They saw a hawk, they saw a plane, someone in the audience did something. Dude, are they good at still like formulating a plan B and coming back? Let's say they miss their perch and then they do another pattern and come back, or is it like you miss the perch and like goodbye?
We've had surprises with it. Gabe has actually surprised us and completely surpassed, because typically what we do is we use them in our shows and we actually send them right back over here. We'll actually fly out around the entire backside of the bleachers and we come right up to the person on stage. And so we usually use that kind of as our opening flight, because people don't see him until he's coming right down on the stage and they're like, oh wait, where did he come from?
That's what we're going to do for our show.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it because it just adds that kind of shock factor, and people are like, I don't.
But he doesn't fly over them because
no, not typically.
Do you have any flyovers with them?
We do. The king bolter does do the flyovers because he does fly. Our Harris hawk, she also does flyovers because she does all the perches that are up in the bleachers. She goes from perch to perch out there. And for him, he did a couple of times, and it totally threw us off because we were not expecting it. He totally bypassed the person on stage, just was too high to come in for the landing, and then did it again. Flew all the way around the backside of the bleachers again, and then finally came back to the person. So I was like, that was incredible, and we were not expecting that at all. We were expecting him to just go into a tree because he's done that before too. So for him, it's kind of hit or miss with some of that stuff. If he does miss the person, sometimes he'll just go and he'll land in one of these trees up here, and we always know that he's going to come back.
Some of them, the dumber ones, it's like they do what they learn. They know once they're past that, they lost. They don't have that.
Yes, and for some of them, we definitely.
They don't have a comeback mentality, right?
Yes, and because once they break that pattern, they don't know how to correct themselves.
Do you intentionally free fly them? Not like, I mean, there's like a controlled flight and really free flight.
Yes.
You do free flight where it's like go fly wherever you want and come back.
We do. Our Harris, she used to have a complete set pattern that she always did. We knew she would go from this perch to this perch, and then down back to us. We kind of decided to move away from that because we didn't want her to get bored with it. And she was starting to have a little bit of an issue where she would just sit up on one of those perches, and it could take her 4 or 5 minutes before she would want to come down, which kind of means our show has to come to a halt because we can't bring out our next animal if our hawk is still sitting up there and might think the next animal is a good thing to eat. So we had that issue with her, so we kind of decided to mix it up a little bit and alternated between her not only going to the perches but also coming down to stage, not necessarily to us, but doing targeting around on stage as well. So that way she could go to us, she could go to the perches, she could come down on stage and do stuff. She could come to us sometimes, and we would just send her back out and have her do some more flying, so that way she never knew what time she
So it's not like, it's overtime, you're going to stick me away.
And that was one of the things we were running into, is she knew when she came down to us, she was done flying, so she didn't want to come down yet, and so she would just sit up there and wait us out. So when we started to introduce that, give her a little bit more freedom.
But now with the parrots, it's too difficult.
No,
it's too difficult, right?
With these guys, it'd be a little hard for that, because they'd be like, wait, you're telling me I can go anywhere? Okay, I'm gonna go everywhere.
So would you admit that the parrots are probably the hardest birds to free fly? No,
Yes.
Or the outdoor fly.
No, I completely agree with that. Birds of prey are so much easier because they know you have food, and they are so much more food motivated than these guys can be. Because these guys, they're hungry, but at the same time, they also are going to take into consideration everything else. And what they've been doing today.
Do they ever go to the audience? Like some of them love people.
No, thankfully that's one thing we've kind of shied away from. We don't do a whole lot of audience interaction with some of the parrots. Just once you do, just because of that, and because all of them were previous pets, we don't want to encourage any of them to just go to people, because some of them also have favorites in terms of which people they like and which people they don't. And the last thing we want is for them to see somebody they don't like and then want to go fly and go to that person just to take out a finger. So we try to avoid that with some of the parrots at least. We have worked some small stuff, small behaviors and stuff, but not flying.
How many feedings do they get a day?
Typically, most of them get one large feeding and then one or two smaller feedings throughout the day. It kind of depends on
But
what
small,
our
do you mean it's
session-
in training or in cage? In cage, how many feedings do they get? Split
Typically
up.
for some of them it's only one. Some
For
of them,
parrots?
yeah, some of them will get two or three. It kind of depends, and that also kind of goes for some of the other birds as well. We will split it up, especially if
But
we
is
are
that
doing
one
in-cage.
feeding, is that big enough that it lasts them all day, or is it like they're done after an hour or whatever? When we say it's one feeding.
If it's the one feeding, that's the food that would be their entire
So
portion.
the bowl would be
entire
the bowl
day.
would be empty within an hour, and then that's what they're going off for all day, except for the training treats.
Yes, and that's why typically we won't.
That makes it hard because if you change your schedule, they're either going to go over 24 hours or
And
not enough.
that's where we have the issues where we know, okay, if they got the majority of their food at the end of the day, we know we're not going to try anything first thing in the morning with them because they're still going to be full up from.
Would you
from
strength
the night
that end of the
before.
day portion to get them ready in the morning, or you don't do that? It's always the same size portion.
It kind of depends on the individual animal.
It's so hard to keep track.
No, and
of
it is.
When you're feeding though, what kind of food management ratios do you use? You know, do you put them down to 10 to 20% probably for free flyers?
Typically, yes. And then again, we do it on a case-by-case basis with each individual because some of them.
Based on
respond
behavior,
better.
based on weight,
Based on
based on
behavior.
volume.
Yeah.
You measure food by weight or by volume.
By weight. Yeah.
You weigh the food.
Yes. Yeah. So we do weigh out everybody's food. Everybody gets a certain amount allocated portion every single day. Some of them do get supplements throughout the day, just depending on what they're doing or what we need them to do.
And you weigh the birds too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So typically,
Majority of the birds get weighed at least 4 or 5 times a week. Some of the animals we will do 1 or 2 times a week, just depending on what we kind of expect from them. Some of the animals we're not as worried about. The porcupine is a good example. We only weigh her once or twice a week. We're not as worried about her weight because she's food managed, but she's not weight managed.
Right.
So we're not. Her weight doesn't really. Her performance is not dependent on her weight. Some of the birds definitely depend on it. Some of the
so like if you're in a
other
free fly
animals
macaws, what are you going to be 10 to 15 to 20% probably for free fly
Yes.
from free feed?
Yes, I mean, it varies because Gabe, our blue and gold, he is so much better with.
Well, as they get better, you can do less
Yes, and that's-
because they get in the habit.
yes,
Once
and
they, but till let's say to train them with free flight, the initial stage is going to be like close to 20%,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, and I mean.
Oh, but curious this also, this free feed isn't natural weight, it's
Yes.
overweight.
Yes.
So where would you think their natural weight is? Let's say 5 or 10 under
Yes.
free feed versus hunger weight
Yes.
that's for, you know?
And see, we do battle with that issue, especially because of the weather changes that we have here, because it goes from being so hot to being cooler weather.
Yeah, they need more
and-
food when it's
yes, and so
cooler
we
and
do,
everything, yeah.
depending on the seasons, we also will vary there.
So complicated,
It
all
is.
these variables.
It is. And so that's why, I mean, it's so important.
And so
for
once
us
again,
just
is
to
it
keep
always
an eye on their weights.
you're looking at behavior though?
We do,
The behaviors that are going to be the cause.
Yes,
And
and
you know
then-
what kind of behavior to expect.
Yes, and everybody is always trained up on exactly what they need to know and what they need to expect from each individual.
Now,
animal.
what about when you go too far? In at what point will you say like, okay, we could give this bird more food? He's like over. Where do you look for that?
When it kind of, for some of the individuals, we definitely know when we're doing too much because they let us know. Like I said,
Is it because they're begging you? They're overzealous, or
yes.
you're going through every book in the routine?
For like the cockatoo, like I said, right now she's leaving half of her food behind.
Well, that's
She's
more
getting-
than obvious.
Yeah,
I mean,
she's getting more than she needs at this point, but she's also getting exactly the amount that we have planned out for her, just to maintain the weight that she's at and maintain her behaviors at what they're at as well. She chooses not to eat whatever gets left over. Some of our birds will never ever leave anything. Never, regardless of the time of the year.
yeah, so they just pick out. It's
Yes,
too much.
and so some of them, it's just that type of-
Feeding them once a day, of course, like they're gonna stuff themselves until they are gonna pop.
Yes, and so that's why the majority of them, especially more of the working animals, the ones that we are using every single day, we spread out more of the food opportunities for them. So
What about this? Are you doing more about weight management or more about food scheduling? Which one's the more predominant? You understand what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
let's say the bird never goes below free feed weight,
Yes.
but you train it when it's hungry and then you feed it after.
Yes.
So the bird maybe eats 2 or 3 times a day, but
Yes.
it's never the average weight never goes below free feed.
Yes.
But you're just getting it when it's empty. Versus, this bird is always like, you get the bones and it's not.
No, and see, for all of us, like for my personal preference, I like to keep the birds above what we have their target weights at, just because I'd rather have them a little bit on the more on the fatter side than a little on the thinner side, and that's just my personal preference, and it works out well for the majority of the birds. Some of the birds we do have issues, and we have to watch their weight a little bit more just because of that.
And what about variable ratio reinforcement during flights? Do you ever not reward a bird for recalling?
We have. We don't do it very often, but we have done that in the past.
Mostly continuous?
Yes. Like we try to, just because we only push that with birds that we know are not going to get messed up if they don't get the reinforcement right then and there.
At first, it will mess them up, but in the long term, if you keep doing it, then it doesn't. It just makes it stronger. It reduces extinction because now the one time you don't reward, they're not gonna. You drop the reward by accident, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, this doesn't work." So they're gonna forget it.
Wait, I'm not gonna come to the next time. Yeah, no, we practice that all the time, and like I said, sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. I know.
Do they always go to people's arms when they come out?
Yes, for the most part. We do have our scarlet macaw. He's pretty much the only one that we ask to just come to the front of the cage, and then he'll step up onto our arm. Otherwise, everybody else will come straight down onto an arm or a hand.
See, that's gotta be a pain if they're clinging in the back and they don't want to come out.
Yes, and that does happen.
So mostly you just station them?
Yes. Yeah. And for her, thankfully, she's the best about it. That's why I was like, I'm gonna get her because I know she's gonna come out regardless of what the weather is.